clouds, not a lot of rain over here today. So that's a lot of people are out of the city, so it's a little bit less crowded. And it was so wet. It was wet enough to keep most people inside. So you could have the whole sidewalk all to yourself, which is just nice, I gotta say. Okay, so at 8:30, the Mueller report is going to be beginning. That's very exciting. Now, remember yesterday, the Justice Department told Mueller that he has to limit his testimony to what they called the four corners of his public report. And you know, of course, Adam Schiff, the House Intelligence Committee chairperson, he's a Democrat from California. He told Mueller, you know, that those instructions from the Justice Department should have no bearing on his congressional appearance. So Democrats are saying one thing. The Department of Justice is trying to get Mueller to rein it in. Mueller was a reluctant witness, remember? So it took him forever to get on here, which I have to say is slightly annoying that they're going to go to recess. Congress is going to recess on Friday. So who's left to discuss? They're all going to be where? At the beach? Who's left to discuss this? Us. We're going to have to parse it out. So it's. I think it's great. I think it's great that they're bringing it to national attention. 8:30 a.m. Our live coverage is going to start. Thoughts on that, King?
Well, first of all, it's going to be great to have one of our regulars, Julianne.
Yeah, Julianne
Malveaux is going to be one of the hosts. And then another person who I hope to get on the air at some point here, Bill Fletcher, who was the CEO of TransAfrica and was also involved in labor for a long time. So this commentary will be the place to tune in.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful thing because we are working in collaboration with our sister station in D.C. to bring you that coverage. So it's really nice to see the Pacifica stations working together to bring that voice across the country. Not just in our locals, but so that's wonderful. And thanks, Linda, for helping make that happen here in New York. We have some New York related central news that I think is important that we bring to the fore. I know everyone's been kind of watching what has happened with the healthcare fund for the 9/11 first responders and victims. This, of course, was pushed and supported by Jon Stewart. I think without his presence there, unfortunately, our first responders would have gotten nowhere. But the bill will now last through 2092. That's way farther than what they wanted to do. And I do want to say it is due to what Jon Stewart has said and done. And he appeared on Fox News, where when Rand Paul said, I don't know, we should really check the budget on whether we should save people who, you know, ran into harm's way without thinking of themselves to save other Americans during a terrorist attack. We're going to have to check the budget. Are they wasting money? Is there pork? Let's just, it's like the most disgusting response. And Jon Stewart did a great job of taking him down. And I do credit this particular appearance and this clip for, what our elected officials did in making that commitment to support these victims last till 2092. Here's the clip.
It's absolutely outrageous, and you'll pardon me if I'm not impressed in any way.
Hi, my name is Victor Romero.
It's fiscal responsibility virtue signaling. Rand Paul presented.
Hi, my name is Victor Romero. I'm here today with the New Mexico Dream Team, which is a branch of United We Dream.
By Rand Paul's
so
fiscal
a bunch of folks from all around the Southwest, including
Rand
Texas,
Paul presented
Colorado.
Tissue paper avoidance of the $1.5 trillion tax cut that added hundreds of billions of dollars to our deficit. And now he stands up at the last minute after 15 years of blood, sweat, and tears from the 9/11 community to say that it's all over now. Now we're going to balance the budget on the backs of the 9/11 first responder community. Brett, this is about what kind of society do we have. At some point, we have to stand up for the people who have always stood up for us. And at this moment in time, maybe cannot stand up for themselves due to their illnesses and their injuries. And what Rand Paul did today on the Senate was outrageous. He is a guy that put us in hundreds of billions of dollars of debt. He was the 51st vote on that cut. And now he's going to tell us that $1 billion a year over 10 years is just too much for us to handle. You know, there's some things that they have no trouble putting on the credit card. But somehow when it comes to the 9/11 first responder community, The cops, the firefighters, the construction workers, the volunteers, the survivors, all of a sudden, man, we got to go through this. This program has already been running for 5 years. No fraud. It was testified when we went in front of Congress. The special paymaster testified. No fraud, no waste, no abuse. Yeah. Mike Lee, we met in his office 5 years ago. He looked us in the eye. He looked Ray Pfeiffer in the eye, who unfortunately is no longer with us, and said he was going to look into it. He is the reason that we've had to go back again for this new one, and now he wants to put another cap on it that's going to make John Fiel and all these other tenacious yet ill first responders drag themselves back to Washington to put their hats in their hands and beg for something that this country should have done 14 years ago.
You know, we asked...
It's an abomination.
We asked...
A star hold the hands of people who just rightfully deserve our positive treatment. I mean... there's a lot of sickening things going on out there. It's time to stop being surprised at what the Republicans are doing. Of course, this is what they're doing. I mean, they have kids in cages. They're reanimating concentration camps. This is a par for the course for what's going on there. But it's wonderful that Jon Stewart did that, and it's great that they are going to be set till 2092, and who knows who will have to pick up the cause after that, because I don't think that the ramifications of 9/11 on the families that were first responders is going to end there. We are in our pledge drive here at 99.5 FM in New York City. And I think what King said at the beginning of the show is really important. The fact is that the people who are going to be chairing our coverage of the Mueller report are bringing you an alternative voice that you're not going to get anywhere else. Now, everyone else wants to stream it. Everyone else wants to be your place for watching this. The New York Times is streaming it. I'm sure CNN, MSNBC, all of that. But we've got what we've got on Pacifica.
And these are voices that you know and respect. Julianne Malveaux has been on the air here many, many times, and Bill Fletcher has as well. And you're not going to get the kind of incisive analysis that looks at the big picture and not simply, we're going to tell both sides of the story, which we get from most of the media, and just kind of say, we'll wait and see. There's been so much evidence and so much water under the bridge that this needs to be explained and shared from that context.
So that's why we are asking you. We're in our pledge drive for WBAI. I don't think we need to tell you how important it is, because you're here and you're listening and you're part of our WBAI community. We want you to make that pledge, make that your donation for this cycle today. 516-620-3602 is the number, 516-620-3602, or go to give2wbai.org. Now, today we're covering the environment, and we have Alexander Kaufman is joining us, and we also have, in the second half, a Native American chief, clan chief. This is unusual, and we are very lucky to have King, who was able to get this guest to come on and talk about the issues that they are having. And so we got a premium for you that goes along with the show.
So we're kind of calling this Native American Day, and if you want to know what the segue is to Mueller, all of this stuff is happening on land that originally belonged to the Native peoples. And so our premiums
I'm sure you're not going to hear that anywhere else.
Right. So we've got 3 great premiums, and you'll see the tie-in to our later segment when Chief Mann is on the air. But we've got the Native American Nations map. This is a beautiful map.
So beautiful.
I've seen it. Now I've got to get one for myself.
I have one.
Oh, you describe it.
Well, it's just gorgeous. I grew up in upstate New York, and there are, I guess, what did they call them? I wanted to call it a plantation, but that's not quite right. It's a reservation. And
close.
So a little bit closer than we are here in New York City to just kind of being in community with Native Americans. I grew up close to that reservation. In fact, John Kane and I share an accent. John Kane, the host of Let's Talk Native and Let's Talk, or Talk Back Here now, as it's been called. But we have this beautiful Native American map that shows it's a really comprehensive map, and it shows basically pre-contact and at contact Native North America to date. It's not really like other maps. It's basically impeccably researched And it uses tribal nations' original indigenous names for themselves, not the white names that people gave them because they couldn't, I guess, figure out how to pronounce it. That's still going on. It shows where the tribes were before the contact with outsiders, as well as the last homelands they defended. The purpose of this map is to instill pride in the native peoples and to educate the rest of us. Because, you know, you're going to get a lot of fake news. I hate to use Trump's word for it. A lot of spin. And when you have the map, you can just look at the map. And the comment that you made earlier, the fact that this Mueller's testimony is happening on native land, well, the whole thing was native land. So you can kind of take a look at, you can just have a sense of history there. It's way better than just looking it up on the internet because you can't see it. It doesn't live with you when it's just like you're Googling what happened here right before you're standing there. It's just something that lives with you, and it's beautiful. It is 24 by 36, and it goes up perfectly on the wall, complements decor. It's lovely. The Native Americans Nation map is part of Map Creator, which is designed by, if you're a map person, it's one of Aaron Carapella's Tribal Nations map series, which covers the nations indigenous to the United States. And you can frame it up, I am telling you. Now, we are offering you this map as one of the gifts. If you can pledge to WBAI today, the pledge amount to get this beautiful piece of artwork is $100. If you can make a pledge in the name of Waking Up for $100 during the show today, we will send you that map as soon as possible. 516-620-3602 is the number to call and make your pledge. So this is really a one-of-a-kind type of thing. Really, really one-of-a-kind type of thing. Give the number to WBAI.org. Give the number to WBAI.org is how you go online to do it. And I encourage you to do it today. Now, if $100 is too steep for you, we also have something related.
Yeah, we've got 500 Years of Indigenous Resistance. It's a book that looks at the colonization of the Americans by Europeans, and an activist and historian of Native descent makes the point that the colonial powers met resistance from the indigenous people, and that these confrontations shaped the form and the extent of colonialism, so that the resistance helped shape it. And it encompasses North and South America, the development of nation states, and the resurgence of indigenous resistance in the post-World War II era, a part that's also often forgotten. And so this, for a pledge of $50, will get you this book, which, as Juliana just said, is a good companion to the map itself.
Yeah, so that's for $50. For $150, you can obviously get both a Native American Nations map and the 500 Years of Indigenous Resistance map. Now, we don't want to be, are we becoming the home shopping network of resistance materials? Perhaps we are, and that is fine because we want to give you something as a thank you gift for supporting this station, supporting where you get your information. Just remember how important it is in this day and age. One of the things we like to do is tell you the things that we have covered since the last fund drive. So it's not like, oh, we're doing another fund drive? Yeah, we are. And since the last fund drive, we have covered the concentration camps that are in Texas and now in Oklahoma and in other states. We've covered over and over and kept in the news cycle this the horrors of immigration. We've covered police brutality. We just recently spent a lot of time covering what was happening with Eric Garner from a New York local and radical point of view, not just.
And the only coverage of the Democratic debates where the candidates were confronted by activists from our communities and where the issues of militarism and poverty and wealth were raised directly and the only items on the agenda.
The moral
majority.
The moral budget. We talked about that.
Yep.
There was so many things that we've done between the last pledge drive, and we thank you for your donations in that last pledge drive, because they made it possible for us to bring you all of that stuff. Now, we are coming up on election season. We've got the Mueller report. We want to continue to bring the kind of coverage that you have come to rely on to you.
And do it in the name of our show, but also do it with the mind towards all of the other programs that are on 24/7. Some that you like, some you don't pay attention to, but we give you the variety and the kind of choice you won't get anywhere else.
$100 for the next several months doesn't break down to $5 a week or $10 a week, and hopefully we're worth that much to you. So we appreciate that, and if you can pledge at that $100 level today, you will get that beautiful, beautiful map that we were able to pull together. It's the Native American Nations map. If you're able to pledge at $50 today, the 500 years of indigenous resistance is what it's the book. And for $150, you will get them both. Thank you so much, everyone who is pledging. I do see some pledges coming in. Obviously, we like Native American information, and we need to maintain our history. We need to understand our history, lest we let the Republicans repeat it, which is what they are literally trying to do. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano here in the studio with King Downing. It is a cloudy day here in New York City, 69 degrees, going up to 84. We're going to play a bit of music here, and then we'll be back with Alexander Kaufman. Stay tuned.
Thank you, everyone, for standing at this time. These are all the tribes in the area. Host Strum, Host Tribe, Ramapo Nation. All our flags are carried by our veterans, our dignitaries, our chiefs. Our tribal council is next. We also got our head dancers. To Rick Paul, the Ramapo Nation and Napi, men's head dancer and female head dancer. Whoops, Bob, Mrs. Powell. Welcome. Lakota Nation. Let's round of applause for our head dancers. He walks far. And then our tribal council.
Okay, so this is music from the grand entry of the Ramapo Lenape Nation's powwow, and we'll be hearing that throughout the show and also leading into our conversation with Chief Man.
How exciting. And now next coming up, Alexander Kaufman. He's on, right, Michael? Is Alexander with us? Oh, hi, how are you? We were making the change to Skype, and so we wanted to make sure. So you're on vacay?
Not on vacay. I'm at a plastics pollution conference at Bennington College in southern Vermont.
You don't go to those things just for rest? Plastics.
It is not. It is not. Which is a particularly vile form of single-use plastic.
Here's a question I have. If I order something from Amazon and it comes with a whole bunch of plastic, is it the same use of plastic if I just go to the store and get it? Because aren't they shipping the stuff to the store in that same plastic? How do consumers, if you want to make a choice on reduction of plastic, how do we reduce our plastic usage? I know cities are doing things like banning plastic straws, banning plastic bags, and hopefully when we do things like that en masse, that will have a great effect. But how can, until we can get Amazon to not do this, how can we as consumers effectively be useful?
Well, the answer, as always with these issues, is the most useful thing you can do is really become politically engaged with the issue. This is something that needs to be dealt with systemically, and there isn't that much that individual actions can do to really seriously make a dent in the amount of pollution that's being produced. That being said, there is actually, I just learned about this yesterday, some newer online retailers, including a company called Loop, that while it's expensive, that's sort of the trade-off here, but you can buy a lot of household items on there in reusable containers. So for instance, you could buy Haagen-Dazs ice cream in a metal cylindrical container that after you're done, the company picks up, and you pay a small deposit fee on the off chance that you decide to keep that container, but you are refunded
what a
as
good
soon
idea.
as you send it back.
Oh, hopefully that'll become the next Amazon, and Amazon won't just soak it up, because hopefully that's the way that we are going. And I do think, thanks for talking about that, because I do think that it's important that people have thoughts about what the world could look like. It doesn't have to be the way that it is. There are many possibilities out there, so thank you for that. We're speaking with Alexander Kaufman, the climate reporter for the Huffington Post. Now, when Obama and his administration moved to create climate change legislation, members of the GOP decried an assault on states' rights. They love states' rights. They want to be able to have all of their red states do all kinds of horrible things. And hopefully those horrible things will spill out onto the coasts where we still have some blue states. But now that the Trump administration is using that same approach to undo regulations, all of a sudden these same states' right lovers don't have much to say about federalism. Alex, thanks for joining us here on the program. And your most recent piece, is on GOP's Double Think About States' Rights. Can you talk about the recent arguments from the Trump administration for states' rights when it comes to environmental deregulation, and why they're so hypocritical?
Sure. So, it's important to understand that I think the context of this first. During the 8 years under the Obama administration, the fight for states' rights was a mantra for a lot of Republican attorneys general. It's important to point out that the man who became Trump's first EPA administrator, Scott Pruitt, was previously the Oklahoma Attorney General and aggressively sued to block things like the Clean Power Plan and other environmental rules under the auspice that it violated states' rights to, pursue their own agenda when it came to energy and pollution control, and that the federal government was overreaching by setting these rules that would across the board reduce emissions from the power sector. Now, that argument seems to have changed because you have the Trump administration coming in and attempting to do a number of things, but the biggest one right now is to eliminate the fuel economy rules that were agreed to in 2012 and basically make American cars sold here much less efficient, which is expected to add many hundreds of thousands more barrels of oil that are burned per year. There has been a lot of great reporting, particularly in the New York Times, that exposed just how heavy-handedly the oil industry pushed for this change specifically. And this runs into a problem because California, under the Clean Air Act, is allowed to set its own rules when it comes to this kind of stuff. And California, dealing with the kind of smog that it has in a city like Los Angeles, has set much more aggressive rules. rules on how to deal with CO2 coming from cars. And so this creates a problem because auto manufacturers don't want to create one set of cars to one standard in California and then another set of cars to another standard in 49 other states.
And God forbid they should just use the California standards everywhere and create one car that doesn't destroy the environment.
That's
why?
Right.
Why not?
So that's probably one of the more extreme cases that you're seeing right now, but there are plenty of other examples, including the EPA is expected in the next few days or so to release a rule that would essentially repeal the right of communities or individuals to appeal a pollution permit that the EPA grants in their towns.
Oh no! Sorry. Make me
yeah, and so I think that sort of illustrates it. It's really it's a very selective reading of what states' rights ought to be.
It's kind of moving from states' rights don't have the big guy crush the little guy so that we can continue doing racist things to the state has the right to your land, your air, poisoning your food. The state is it's becoming synonymous with oppression instead of the state is little and we should be able to. We want freedom.
Right. So the state is in the Republican view oppressive if it wants to restrict industry in different states and restrict the way that wealthy individuals in some of those states can profit off the destruction of the environment and the reduction of public health of the citizens around them. But if the state wants to go further and actually install more protections and make it a little more difficult for those companies to pollute, then that is a great overreach from the federal government.
So Alex, you're a thinking guy and you've done a lot of work around this. Don't we need to come up with some other terminology? Maybe you have, because state rights is really just a mask, and federalism are really just masks for conservative versus progressive agendas, and everybody flips from one side to the other. So a lot of attorneys general are now pushing to go after Trump, for example, and get his materials, even though the feds may reclaim that territory. So is there another way we can talk about this without ping-ponging back and forth between these two terms?
It's a good question. I as a reporter, I try to be an able user of words as tools and not necessarily an inventor of terms. But I agree with you that there needs to be some other way to describe this phenomenon of federalism, because it is so politically loaded, and this this issue of states' rights, as I wrote in the piece, goes back all the way to the Jim Crow era, when the efforts to roll back or to challenge the civil rights legislation that was coming through, and efforts to recast the reasons why the Confederate States receded for anything other than the preservation of human chattel.
Yes.
That was a states' rights issue and not something else. So I agree with you. It's an imprecise term, and it really does underscore how much the kind of worst actors in this are trying to obfuscate their real intentions and the losing side of history.
It also doesn't, it's not plain talk. It's like when I speak to my husband, the scientist, and he's like, well, when you overstimulate the semiocortex, the expression of the, I'm like, what happens when you get stressed out? Can you just keep it plain, people, and part of my desire is to reach as many people as possible in our audience, maybe people who haven't had an opportunity to get a PhD in governmental terminology. So when we are having a fight, states' rights versus federalism, I really appreciate what you're doing, Alex, because you're breaking it down to be like, states' rights means they can come and pollute in your backyard without having to do any, you're not going to have a voice as a person. They're taking away your rights. So it's really wonderful what you're doing. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being on our show, and thanks for being a regular. We're speaking with Alexander Kaufman from the Huffington Post climate reporter. Good luck up in the plastics area. I hope you come up with one giant solution that we can all get behind.
I'm sure I'll be talking about it here if I do.
Oh, great. Well, we look forward to your next article, and we look forward to having you back on our program. You're listening to WBAI 99.5 FM. Coming up after this musical break, Vincent Mann of the Turtle Clan. He's the chief of the Ramapo Lenape Nation, and we have another song that we, a part of this Ramapo Lenape powwow that we're going to play as part of our break.
Great blanket.
Everybody please rise. Remove your hats as we get ready to bring in Grand Style. Grand Entry song has begun. As we get ready to bring in Grand Style. Grand Entry song has begun.
Listening. We know we have a national audience now, and we're grateful for that. It's going up to 83 here in our neck of the woods. Not too hot. I'm still like expressing the heat that I took in over the weekend. And I had some friends in Mill Basin who told me that they kept New York. They had an outage that was part of the power outage in New York City. Overworked grid. We made an excellent point on the show that if we had solar, this would not be a problem. If we had wind, this would not be a problem. In fact, there's going to be way more wind now that we have, extreme temperatures, and we should harness that and use it to keep the buildings cool. People in Mill Basin were like going in their cars and then running their cars, which of course exacerbates the problem. But when it's 100 degrees and you have a toddler, what are you going to do? And the government kept saying, oh, it's going to be on soon, and then it wouldn't be. So the people didn't leave, but they needed to do something. So, this is real. This is real. This is happening. This is in our listening area, and we hope everyone has survived that heat wave. You're listening to WBAI. We are in the middle of our fund drive, and coming up next on the show is Vincent Mann of the Turtle Clan. He's the chief of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. But before we bring him on, we want to let you know that we need you to become a WBAI supporter. And for a pledge of $100 today, we are offering you this beautiful map that we were able to find, the Native Americans Nation map, for a $100 pledge. So please call in at 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602.
This is an important ask that we make of you, and we do it as little as we can throughout the year. And it's a chance for you to support the station, the big things you know about, like the Mueller hearings, the Democratic candidate challenges, but also the little things, even the weather, what's going on in New York, all done from a progressive point of view, because we're going to talk about the weather, but we're going to talk about why it's so messed up.
We're going to talk about climate change.
Yeah, we're going to talk about why there was a tornado on Cape Cod yesterday.
Wow.
And why
I did not know that one. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah,
there's so much to follow. You could have a whole weather show.
And
Maybe
why
we should do that.
Yeah, it would be pretty depressing. And why ticks? The
Weather Channel keeps.
But they keep grinning,
They're like, it's fine.
As a tornado hovers over one town for 15 minutes. And
once NBC bought it, once Comcast bought it, they started smiling over there.
Right.
Yep.
And ticks in Maine now. So all of this kind of stuff, you're not going to get this anywhere else. And so we ask you to give your support in the name of our show, Waking Up, but also in the memory of and the consciousness of all the other programs that are on that you listen to: health, housing, every kind of political issue you're dealing with. Where else are you going to hear and I'm kind of dropping a little nugget for the future. Where else are you going to hear about the 50th anniversary of the Young Lords?
Exactly.
Who are having their big event coming up? Where else are you going to even hear about that?
Exactly. And where else are you? I mean, it's amazing what happens here. And where else are you going to be able to write in? I have people writing in, and we read their mail on the air. We have callers calling in. We have regular callers that call in, so you kind of half host the show when you call in and make your points. And then we have a wide network of other people who can call in, get their voices on the air when we take callers, and I love that part of the show. And we also, I have people writing in to me saying, hey, this thing is happening. Can you please announce it? Can you please cover it? This is not just radio where you're not going to get any airtime. Also, we had musicians on last week.
Yes, we do. We had Rachel Brown on, and
her manager came and was like, we can't get any airtime because she is, not like enormous, and she's not just playing along with the rules that apparently you have to play along with.
Read payola.
Yeah, exactly. So, this is the place where you're going to get a radio home, and this is the place where you're going to be able to get tangible things. And we also bring, these big fancy people on so that they can become tangible because they're not too big and fancy. Anyway, that's all we do for you, if in case you forgot, but I know you're listening, so you already know that. And we need your support. 516-620-3602. We understand that the audience is growing here on WBAI. So if you are new, we do really want you to make that pledge. As soon as we hit our pledge threshold, we're going to be done with this pledge drive. So you won't be able to get the map anymore, but you can only get that one today. So for a pledge of $100, go ahead, King.
So for a pledge of $100, you can get the Native American Nations map, which details these original nations in their original names, including the time frames that all of that went with. And for a pledge of $50, and by the way, you can be a member for a minimum of $25.
Yeah.
And so there's a way to join, even if these are not within your budget.
And we also are happy if you just give us whatever is if you're like, here's my $8. I don't care. That's fine. It all goes to supporting WBAI in general, keeping the lights on here.
And so we also have for you 500 years of indigenous resistance for a pledge of $50. This is your gift, and a Native activist and historian looks at how the resistance to colonialism actually shaped the way that the colony looks and acts now. And you can get the two of them for a pledge of $150. So please call in and pledge at 516-620-3602, 516-620-3602, and renew your membership, become a first-time member, or a BAI buddy.
You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano, and I do want to thank our next guest for being on the line while we were doing our pledge drive. King, you brought in this guest, so I'm very excited that you were able to do this.
Well, I've had the honor of meeting Chief Mann before, and this is Chief Vincent Mann of the Turtle Clan of the Ramapo Lenape Nation. And in the 1960s, the Ford Motor Company bought 900 acres of land in Ringwood, which was home to 900 members of the Ramapo Nation. Ford then began to produce cars and not only have paint in large quantities, but just begin to dump the paint in old mines and even in landfills around the area. And the children started to handle the stuff, and now the Ramapo Nation has become very upset by the fact that the APA has dragged its feet for years and years and is now getting ready to issue a consent decree, which they have some issues with. But I'll let Chief Mann tell the story. Chief, welcome to the program.
Good morning, and thank you.
Thank you for coming on.
So tell us, what's the problem with the EPA's consent decree?
First, what we have as an issue is the consent decree is you have the state of New Jersey and you have the EPA. The EPA, as you said, has done more than drag their feet. They prematurely closed the site in '94. It took 12 years to get it relisted. And you have the state of New Jersey, who is actually culpable for allowing the dumping to occur by permit that they issued for a year.
What kind of stuff are they dumping?
What was dumped was the chemicals that was used to clean the Ford paint booths.
Ooh, that can't
so,
be good.
No, there's hundreds of different chemicals that was dumped in the mines, in rivers, on the land that we would use to gather and hunt, and even some yards.
Oh,
So, and this was all done under the authority of the town of Ringwood as well. I actually have a letter from 1969, I believe it is, from the mayor of Ringwood to Henry Ford in Michigan, requesting that all the industrial waste from the Mahwah plant be disposed of there.
Mm.
And what kind of consequences are people suffering as a result of the exposure?
Goodness.
Give us the specifics, if you don't mind, because we want to bring this home as a personal issue. You can tell us what one person is suffering, what the group is suffering, etc.
Well, I mean, we've had an endless amount of deaths from cancer. We've had body parts removed, which you can see in Man versus Ford documentary that was done. We have skin issues, teeth issues, diabetes is off the chart. The immune systems are beat down. We've lost a 10-year-old boy with 2 rare cancers in his spine. Last year we lost a young mother of 30 with 2 children. One was 1 year old. 3 children she has or had. My aunt has passed cancer. My cousin Freddie just died of cancer about a month or 2 ago. It is an endless sea of despair. And
what are you asking the Ford Motor Company to do, and what can our listeners do to support you?
What really needs to happen is that the people who are also responsible need to have pressure put on them to do the right thing. And our community is still inside of the Superfund site.
Oh my God!
Yes, that will never change with this order that they have planned. And the issues that we have is that in order to give them a chance at life, for our next generations to have a chance at life, we need to be able to build a new community on the other side of the mountain where we know hasn't been dumped on. And, that takes a bunch of effort. That takes money. That takes political connections. That takes a change in the legislature for the Highlands to give us 500 acres of land in exchange for the other 500 acres of land for houses to be built.
So we were under a tight deadline in order to get you on, because we've got an important deadline coming up, and I know that actionnetwork.org is giving people a chance to make public comments. So that clock is running out, right? And so what would you like our folks to do, our listeners to do?
I would, we really need the support to have people, get those comments in there. And even if it is taking comments that have been submitted or that people know of, to get them in there and say, this needs to be held up and it needs to be looked at, because first of all, there was a breakdown in how things work. The EPA should identify the people who are the responsible parties and then cause them to pay, right? But they shouldn't allow the people who caused the injury to be the ones who direct the cleanup.
Yeah, because they're not going to do it.
That's correct.
They've had plenty of chances already.
Absolutely. So they say they have their experts, right? Because they have an ungodly amount of money. The state of New Jersey obviously has their people. The EPA has their people, and our people have no one. We don't have scientists on our side saying, counter reacting to whatever it is these people are saying. We only have the ability to speak from our heart.
Well, I'm glad that you are, and I'm glad we're able to give you this microphone. And let's repeat what people can do to support what you need there. And also, I would like to remind the listeners of what we just talked about with our guest right before this, Alexander Kaufman, who basically said that what Trump and his administration is fighting for is to have the right to do this to everyone. So they're already doing it to people that they think cannot fight back, and we want to have the back of those people. Go ahead.
So the opportunity to comment can be done by, of course, going to the state or federal EPA, but they're being gathered by a progressive organization, actionnetwork.org/letter. And if you put that in, there's a chance for you to put your information in and make your comment. And am I right that the deadline is this Friday?
Yes.
This Friday coming up. So we need,
the 29th.
Oh, Friday the 29th. So we need urgent action by our listeners. And here's a chance to stop something that was very serious. And if you see Man versus Ford, and John Kane had a program right here at the Commons where the film was screened with the overall Ramapo chief, Dwayne Perry, who was part of that comment, along with Stephen Smith, who's the Ramapo counselor to the organization. And so it's a serious problem that's here. But there's just one part that I would like you to speak about. So when Ford finally decided to get rid of the land, they turned it over to a nonprofit organization. And what did the nonprofit organization do with the land that affects your people?
Well, the nonprofit organization was called How To, and they they were given the land for next to nothing. And How To then helped our people learn how to build houses so that they could become homeowners. And so, unbeknownst to anybody, the houses were being built on top of.
Oh my goodness! How to live on a
How to live on a toxic site.
Disgusting.
And just prior to,
I'm so sorry. I mean,
just prior to our Turtle
ridiculous.
Clan members moving into those houses on Van Dunk Lane, which has been listed or named Cancer Row, the town of Ringwood actually came in there and dumped municipal garbage behind all the houses and then covered it up. And to this very day, there are gas vent pipes there to vent off the methane gas.
And of course, you can't sell your house or leave because
there's
no
no
one's going to
value
buy
to
it. Yeah.
That's correct.
Oh my goodness.
So I
well,
really
this is a
like to-
disaster.
Well, it's beyond a disaster because what we're talking about is the EPA wants to leave everything there, and this sits less than a mile above the Wanakee Reservoir that feeds 6 million people with water a day. So
why aren't those 6 million people, protesting? Those 6 million people should be out there. Why do they not? How do they not know?
Because they don't know, because they're in Newark, and because I have even asked the EPA to hold a Citizens Advisory Group meeting, CAG meeting, in Newark and in Patterson and in Passaic to allow those people that are drinking that water to also have a say in it, because in the end, if those mines let go and all that 16 million pounds of toxic waste was being disposed of every quarter. So you figure that out in a period of 10 years.
Chief Man, I want to thank you. We're so pressed for time. I wish we could give this more attention.
Well, we will.
We are. We're going to follow up. First of all, the first call, because we believe in action, is we're going to ask people to go to actionnetwork.org/letters, put in your public comments about this. And then after
you hear it, Passaic? You hear us, Newark? You hear us, Patterson? This is your water. Even if you don't care about other people, this is your water.
And so we want organizations to put their public comments in. We know that the EPA is not going to rule on the consent decree until November 9th, I think it was. So we'll have a chance to come back around and take the issue for the next steps. And we'll have you all back on and just keep people informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just throw in one more word?
Yeah.
I want everyone to know this actually is a national security threat to that drinking supply. And it's very important to use those words.
Oh, that's
national
great.
Security threat.
Yeah.
I like that.
And I thank you for allowing me to be on the air.
Well, we thank you very much, and I appreciate that. And it's rough. That's a rough one. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano in the studio with King Downing. It is 71 degrees outside. Nope, 69. 71 in Jersey. So you guys are hotter than us. Usually we're hotter than them. Going up to 83 only today with a partly sunny afternoon and morning. It's, it looks the warmest day of the week is coming up is going to be Monday, where it's going to go back up to 90. Coolest day of the week is today. It's going to be sunny tomorrow. It's going to rain next Tuesday night. So you're looking at, a good run of sunny or partly sunny and mid to upper 80s until we hit Monday, when it's going to be 90. Now, that's what they're saying today. I don't think they're very accurate in their predictions these days. So if you look out the window, it's pretty decent out there. You're listening to Waking Up. I'm Juliana Forlano. We have with us now Jarrett Murphy of Max and Murphy, our 5 p.m. show here on WBAI. Jarrett, what's coming up tonight? Let me guess. You're gonna talk about the Mueller report.
We're going to talk what Mueller report? We're going to talk about that a little bit, but as you know, Ben and I are very, very local, so we're going to shift from that to talking about some of the news this week about bike safety and police accountability and such matters. We're going to have on Councilmember Donovan Richards of Queens, who has been outspoken on police accountability, and he also has stuff to say about housing. He was a big part of a rezoning in Far Rockaway and has had a lot to do with community land trusts. And we also want to talk politics with him. The Queens political machine is obviously in turmoil over the DA's race, and he might figure into the future of some big positions there in Queens. We want to find out if he can tell us a little more about what his future holds.
Do we have any further information about that Queens DA race at this moment?
As far as I know, it is proceeding, and we are still awaiting final count.
She's still 4 votes away.
If the final count is final, or if there's going to be litigation about it, I think the jury is very much still out.
Jarrett, thank you so much for joining us to tell us about this show. I think it will be a nice relief from talking about the Mueller testimony.
Exactly. We'll give you a break.
Well, we need it. And, some people believe that, we don't want to, that it's not strategically a good idea to keep the Mueller testimony at the forefront of everyone's consciousness because there's so many other issues going on. We, of course, are also going to be bringing it to you all day, starting in 37 minutes right here on WBAI. So this afternoon at 5 p.m., listen to Max and Murphy, one of my favorite shows here on WBAI. So thank you so much, Jarrett, for being on today.
Thank you.
All right. We're done. That's it. We're coming up on the end of the show. But we need your support in order to keep it going.
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, I got to play Michael Mann's clip again here because
I hate to say.
This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, I got to play Michael Mann's clip again here because
I hate to say that we told you so, but we told you so. We predicted this decades ago.
Yep, he did, they did, and I wonder how many people will be listening to him now that they will be broiling for the next several days.
Yep, as we go to air, cities around the nation are implementing emergency measures to deal with yet another dangerous, potentially record-setting heat wave across most of the U.S.
Who could have predicted it?
We told you so.
Now, of course, there is no analysis yet of this heat wave's relationship to climate change, but it does fit the pattern of global warming making heat waves increasingly more frequent, longer, and more intense. So keep that in mind for this next story. If we do little or nothing to cut our greenhouse gas emissions, most of the United States will see twice as many extreme heat days within the next 20 or 30 years, underscoring that climate change is a growing public health threat. According to a new study released this week, the number of days when the heat index, that's the feels-like combination of heat and humidity, when the heat index soars above 100 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, will double within the next 20 years. And heat waves will go from lasting days to lasting weeks. Some U.S. cities will even see off-the-charts heat days of as much as 127 degrees, which is beyond the current heat index. According to climate scientist Michael Mann in an interview with Euronews, that's what we'll see if we don't move quickly to phase out fossil fuels.
What we think of as unprecedented extreme record heat today, the latest studies show that if we continue on this path, we continue to burn fossil fuels for decades to come, then the hottest day we've ever experienced will be a typical summer day in the future.
Well, I hate to say it, but he did tell us so.
He did. Now, that study also includes a tool to look up your location, along with direct actions that every community can take to cut their emissions and get ready for hotter temperatures. We'll have that link at our website, greennews.bradblog.com.
And you're going to have to do something with all that time you're going to be spending indoors in the air condition because you can't even go outside.
Extreme heat, of course, brings other consequences. A different new study this week finds that the amount of land burned by wildfires in the United States has doubled over the last 30 years because of hotter temperatures. It's even worse in California. Wildfires there burn 5 times more land today than they did in the 1970s, thanks to global warming.
Even though we've cleaned up the forests and swept the floor.